Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, the place for business owners and bosses who want to show up consistently and creatively, and most importantly, through their content. Today, we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome, and if you have been in business longer than a minute, you would have experienced imposter syndrome. So today, I am going to leave you with 3 tips to help you beat imposter syndrome for good. And just in case you aren't sure what imposter syndrome is, it's essentially that little voice in your head that says, you're not good enough to do that. You can't teach that. You can't charge that. It's that voice that says, you can't do it. You're going to fail. And as the name suggests, it makes you feel unwelcome, like you're a misfit, like you don't belong in the room. And for the most part, we know that that voice is in our mind, but it's really difficult to ignore and ultimately beat. But the thing is, if we're going to continue to make progress and have success in our business, then we need to learn to manage that voice. Because every time you level up, you are going to have some form of imposter syndrome begin to encroach on your thoughts, and then that ultimately encroaches on the action that you take or perhaps don't take because of that voice. So to have some tips and some tools in your arsenal for when that happens is going to serve you greatly. So here are my 3 top tips for overcoming imposter syndrome. So my first tip for beating imposter syndrome is to get real with yourself and really understand the boundaries in which you operate. So what I mean by that is, where is your expertise? Where does it lie? How do you operate? How do you show up for other people? Do you have real world experience? Do you have education? Do you have testimonials to back you up? Have you done this for other people and clients? And I understand that when you're at the start of the journey, you have a lot less of those things. But the reality is, if you have knowledge in a certain area, then give that knowledge. Don't extend yourself beyond that just because somebody else over here is teaching the same thing and also all of these other things around it. Your job is to stick to what you know. And as you grow in business, as you grow in expertise, as you grow in skills, knowledge, and education, then you can start to go outside of those boundaries and start to teach these things more and more without actually feeling like you're an imposter. The easiest way to avoid imposter syndrome is to teach and show up and give what you actually know, what you are actually educated in, and what you actually have real world experience in. When you look at going beyond those boundaries, that's when you head into troubled waters. I'm going to be honest with you, that was my most boring tip. I almost didn't want to do it because it's not sexy. It's like, okay, yeah, I know what I know, but I still struggle with imposter syndrome. But sometimes it's important to get real with what we know, to mind map it out, to really understand where our areas of expertise are, and even what we enjoy doing the most. Because when those negative thoughts come, we often have to return to truth in order to ground ourselves and root ourselves in truth so that we don't fall into the lie. Because imposter syndrome is just that. It's a lie. It is telling you that you aren't good enough, which is not true. It's telling you that you aren't experienced enough, that you don't have the license to be able to show up and teach this or do this, when that's just not the case if you are operating in the truth, in the boundaries of what you know and are educated in. My second tip for you is probably the most important tip that I have. The area that I see people fall down in so much is comparison, and that feeds imposter syndrome. And often comparison comes through following all of your peers, scrolling social media, constantly keeping tabs on your quote unquote competition. You have to get out of the habit of those things. You have to set your phone away. You have to not look at what other people in your industry are doing. I get that for some of you, it's like a benchmark thing, but at the end of the day, you have to be confident enough to show up, be you, and do you. I'm going to say something right now, which is going to sound super harsh, but here we are. It's the internet. I'm allowed to say it. If you don't have the maturity and self-control to put your phone in another room and not scroll and compare yourself to your peers and your competition, then I'm afraid business is not for you. Because guess what? you're always going to have that temptation. You're always going to have competition. You're always going to have peers. And those people are always going to be putting out more content, showing up in more places. You are the only person in control of that narrative that's going on in your head. And the only way to take control is to stop looking at other people's narratives, other people's lives, other people's social media, and start getting a grip on what you are doing and what you are not doing, and taking control of that back into your own hands and doing the right thing. If you continue to compare yourself with other people, you are going to continue to feel like an imposter. You're going to feel like you never do enough, you never show up enough, you're not here enough, you're not there enough, you're not on enough channels, you're not sending enough emails, you're not making enough money. And it is your job to filter that noise. It is your job to take responsibility in that area and filter those things that are coming through that are not serving you. The only thing that you have control over in this circumstances is you and what you do with yourself. So if you have to take social media apps off your phone, then by all means do that. If you have to put your phone in another room while you work so that you don't scroll, then by all means do that. If you have to stay off social media and post from a third-party app just so that you're not exposed to other people, then you need to do that. And if you need to put plugins on your desktop so that feeds aren't showing and you're not scrolling Facebook and you're not doing all of the things to distract you and create an environment of comparison, then you need to do that. But it is only you who can control that. And this is why this is the most important step, because this is something that you have very real control over. And when you fall into comparison, I can guarantee you it is because you are sitting there consuming way too much content and you are consuming the wrong content. I don't get comparisonitis when I sit and watch Netflix, but if I watch 2 hours of Instagram, you can bet your bottom dollar by the end of it, I'm going to feel crap about myself. So take your power back and monitor yourself, grow up a little bit, get a bit of maturity, get a bit of self-control, and put your phone away. Do what you need to do, celebrate you, commit to showing up, and commit to not consuming other people's content. It is actually that simple. And my third step for you is to think of yourself as a stepping stone. When you get imposter syndrome in your mind, you need to say, hang on a minute, I am not an imposter. I'm actually a stepping stone for somebody. Because as I said before, there's always going to be someone who's further along than you and someone who isn't as far along as you. And so what you are is you're a stepping stone for this person who needs to get to that next level, right? So remind yourself that you are that person's stepping stone by showing them, doing things for them, and teaching them. You don't have to know everything. You just have to be on that next rung of the ladder, that stone in front, that path ahead. Don't fall into that trap of thinking that you need to be everything for everyone, because it's not true and it will kill you. Remember that the expert was once the novice also, and that's you. You are on your way to being the expert. You are on your way to being the next level version of yourself, which means in a year, 5 years, 10 years, you're not going to be the same person you were here. And so you're able to actually expand and even transition or pivot where you need to as you continue that journey in your services and your offerings. You're able to do that because you are growing, because you are human, because you are fluid, right? But you don't have to be everything for everyone right here. Just remember that. Stay in your lane and be confident in what you have to give to the world. And my little bonus tip for you, which I feel is a combination of all of the tips I've given you, is sit down, add a piece of paper, and write down everything that you know about that makes sense for your business. So for me, I would be writing about social media. I would be writing about certain platforms. There's other platforms that I want to get better in that I don't offer services for, right? I don't pretend to be good at them because I don't have enough experience in them. So I wouldn't write down those certain platforms. But I have other platforms like YouTube where I have a lot of experience and I have a lot of clients and I know what I'm doing on the platform. So I would start writing all of that down. I would start writing social media in general, the platforms. I would write about content marketing. I'll write about video and video production and how to actually DIY that at home. There's so many areas that I have expertise in, and I'm able to return to that piece of paper if I ever become unsure of who I am in that moment, which is what imposter syndrome is trying to do. So remember, imposter syndrome is a lie. It's not the truth, and you need to return to grounding yourself in the truth when it shows up. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Be harsh on yourself. Be ruthless until you can trust yourself to consume other people's social media. But in the meantime, stop doing that if you can't be trusted, if it sends you into a spiral of comparison. And then remember, finally, that you are a stepping stone for other people and that is perfection. You don't need to know everything. Nobody actually wants one person to know everything. They just need that stepping stone to get from A to B. They're not always looking to get from A to Z. So take confidence in that. So today's question that I'm going to leave you with is, which one of these 3 tips are you going to implement? Or if you have a different methodology that you use to get out of that imposter syndrome cycle, I want you to leave your answer in the comments below. I read every single one. I get back to every single person, and I would love to hear from you. You show up for other people and help other people, and that elevates the community together. So if you guys love this video, like it, subscribe below, and I will be back with another video very soon. Bye-bye.